Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mormonish. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Landon.
And before we introduce our amazing guests, I have to explain what's different about me today, Landon.
Yeah, you're not on screen today, which is unusual. I know that's
Oh,
what everyone tunes in for is to see Rebecca.
what are you trying to say? It's unusual. I'm not on screen. No, I'm not on screen today. And I'll be perfectly frank and honest about why I have come down with a horrible case of shingles. For those of you that are young, you probably have no idea what that is. I didn't know what that was until a couple of years ago, where peers my age started saying, I have this, or my parents have. This is some kind of like nerve thing. Anyway, the bottom line is my whole eye is like totally swollen shut, and I'm super sensitive to light. I can't even see anything. So I'm kind of laying here on my podcasting couch trying to put off a professional demeanor, because this is such an amazing episode we have today. And there's sort of a time difference here that we wanted to make sure it was hard to coordinate, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we didn't want to miss. So, and I'm going to give a little PSA, because I did have the shingle shot. It's like a 2-series shot that you get when you're like over 55, and still got it, although I'm being told it's not as bad as it could have been. So if this is not as bad, please, everybody, PSA, go out and get your shingle shot. Have you had it, Landon?
I did. I did have
Yeah,
my single shot. I'm
good.
I'm hoping that I don't come down with it, but after seeing what you've got, it
Yeah,
scares me because
yeah.
it's extremely painful.
It's
So
horrifyingly painful, and it's not a good thing, but we're just going to forge ahead, because the most important thing is podcasting, even if I drop dead during it, right?
you're like Bob Barker. Make sure
I
you
know.
spay and neuter your
Yes,
kids.
please get your shingle shot. That's right. That'll be my new thing. So, but hopefully I've had it since last Sunday. So it's been like 6 days. And so I'm hoping it'll turn the corner on the weekend, but boy, it is something else. So yeah, put it in the comments if you've ever had it. I need somebody to commiserate with. And it's just like, it's so embarrassing. It's an old person's disease, but whatever. Hopefully it'll get better. All right.
Crohn's.
Okay, enough about that. Let's move on to what we're really here for, and that is our wonderful podcast. We have a fabulous guest today. We have R&R joining us from Europe. How are you today, R&R?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Happy to be
Yeah.
here.
Oh, good. We're so glad. Like I said, we've been trying to connect this for a while, and there is a little bit of a time difference. So it's like one of us has to stay up really late, or one of us has to get up really early. But I think we finally found a sweet spot here right in the middle. And I wonder if you guys can guess what R&R stands for. Landon, do you want to tell everybody?
Well, in the military, it was rest and relaxation. It was always like
Ah,
vacation time, but in this case, it is return and report. A very
return and
uh, temple derived language here.
That's right. Return and report. And this is just an amazing project. I'm guessing most of you have seen this. And I'm going to let R&R kind of describe a little bit about himself, and then how the idea for this project even got started. Because I kind of stumbled on this pretty early on, I think in the second or third week. And I'm like, this is a brilliant idea. So we're really thrilled to have R&R on with us today.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah. The idea came to me maybe a couple of years ago, and I finally had some time that I thought I can just create this. So one of the issues that we have with the LDS Church is that they don't share very much information, even though they're sitting on all the information. And so we're all left guessing a lot of these data points. And we have different groups, like the Widows Might report that is gathering as much as they can, the financial data, the real estate holdings, that kind of stuff. And there's one big glaring area that we can actually do something about, and that's the attendance numbers. That's the butts in the seats and in sacrament meeting every Sunday. Every ward and branch around the world, every single Sunday, there is a ward secretary that walks up and down counting every single soul, and then they report it. I believe they switched. They do the counting every week, and I believe that they only report like the highest number in a 3-month period to Salt Lake. But
Yeah,
there's this person counting.
that's what I understood. Or they took it. It's like 1 week a month that they count, or something like that. They don't count the others. But you're saying it's once a quarter, the highest number in the quarter. So when they
It's
have a missionary farewell, that's when the bishop always goes, "Get the count,
Count
get the
that.
count."
Yeah, because it's also connected to that's how you get the ward budget money.
Yep.
So they are incentivized to get that number up as high as they can. And they want to count every single soul, everybody in the bathroom in the mother's lounge, every single person. So the church knows the activity rates, it knows the trends, but they don't want to share it with anybody. And yet this would be very valuable information, not just for the ex-Mormon community to be like, haha, we now know what's going on behind the curtain kind of thing, but it's also valuable for people on the pro side. People who are really interested, like what is going on with the church? We need to start sounding some alarm bells. Maybe we need to do something about it. Some kind of measurements could help us. So I approached this issue not exactly from an ex-Mormon point of view, although I haven't been active myself in years. But I saw that there's already somebody counting, and you know who else is sitting there? It's every other person in the congregation, and they all have cell phones, and a large portion of them could be in the ex-Mormon community, kind of like I believe the acronym is PMO, physically in, mentally out.
Yep.
So you have people who, if we were to start like creating a kind of a place, it needs to be, of course, database driven, and it needs to be a really nice interface, really super simple, something that's easy on a mobile phone that somebody can just whip out their phone and yeah, I even thought, like, how do people count? They can count them one at a time. They could also just ask the secretary, what was the number for today? How are things looking, Bob? And then he just nonchalantly tells you. You don't even have to do the counting. You actually don't even have to go to church, right? Let's say your brother is a bishop. You could just kind of casually ask your brother, how are the numbers looking like now? And then you go and report them.
It would probably surprise you, but a lot of the people that watch are in bishops or stake presidency and stake presidents and clerks that we have to watch. So a lot of those people are also PMOs. We tend to think that they're all in, but we find that's not the case.
Well, this doesn't have to be a negative or a positive issue, right? There might be bishops who are also seeing the numbers going down, and they want the true story to be out.
Yep.
So they can do something about this instead of just silently watching.
It's just data. I mean, that's the point. It is just data. It's neither negative nor positive. And I think about this with the residents that are in the towns where they're building temples. That kind of data is important to them because the church is saying we are at capacity, we are at overflow, our buildings are full, our temples are full. And of course, the residents are like, well, gosh, is that true? If it is, and of course, we're saying that's not exactly true. Let's get some accurate numbers out there so everybody can work together and see what works best for all communities. And in all different arenas, not just the temple building. There's no negative data. It just is data.
It just is.
Yeah. Well, when I was growing up, the church was so proud of their numbers that we're the fastest growing, and they'd put them out everywhere. And they were so proud of those numbers. And then all of a sudden they weren't so proud of it. And so that's a little telling when, that's one of the big things that you use to show your growth, to show that you're the true church, that you're rolling forth as a stone cut out of the hill. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, we're not going to show those anymore. And they have them. You see the guy counting every time you're there. Yeah. And so why is it that they're not showing these, or why is it that they're afraid of the data? Because, and I think that's why a lot of the bishops are concerned, because they sit and they say, wait a minute, these numbers, or at least they're saying, why isn't the church being honest about these? We're seeing the numbers and they're definitely going down. Why does the church keep telling us that they're going up, or that we have great growth going on? So I think they're using it. A lot of people are just using it as a check. Let's make sure that what we're being told is accurate and truthful.
Yeah. Well, and then you can pivot once you know the true data and the true numbers. Like any corporation, if you saw that something was going down, you pivot, you have meetings, you figure out what's happening. I think it's very telling that everywhere in the world where you self-report religion, I know the New Zealand census just came out, where you self-report what you are. The numbers are so much lower as far as people that self-report, I am LDS, than what the church has on the rolls. I mean, anywhere they're self-reporting, the numbers are just so much less than what the church is claiming. And so that makes you feel like maybe anywhere there's that they're over reporting the numbers, because where they self-report, there's a huge discrepancy.
Yeah, and I think Amsterdam just called them out. Is it Amsterdam that has that new temple? Belgium has the new temple going in, and they said, wait a minute, you guys don't have this many members from what the church claims. So it is important. People use this data, not just the church, but government entities, censuses, other organizations use these numbers or try to know these numbers so that they can accurately reflect what the general population is doing. And the church somehow, it seems like, wants to make that number look higher or seem higher, and that's not matching with what these other organizations are coming up with, or at least that's what I'm hearing. And maybe you're finding something different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I looked at this issue and I said, this is easy to fix. We can do this ourselves. We already have the people in place with digital devices that could easily do this. And the funny thing is, you don't even have to get the numbers from every single ward and branch in the world. You just have to get a statistically significant amount of them. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a statistician myself, but I reached out to some on Reddit, and I've had people since I started the project reach out to me and try to give me some advice on how to make it better. And what surprised me was they said you only need, I think it was like 400 reports is all you need. And it doesn't even have to be all in one Sunday. It can be stretched out over months. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to get this number of reports. They said once you get to 400, that's statistically significant. And the activity rate, the percentage that you get, it's going to stay there for a very long time. Because even if you have like some swings on one Sunday to the next, one report out of 500 isn't going to move the needle that far. So
and you kind of statistically want them spread out, right? I mean, you want to get Christmas Sunday and Easter Sunday and whatnot, which in LDS isn't typically that big of a difference, but you do want to capture those because it does play into the overall yearly attendance.
And you want to get some Utah and some Guatemala. Mm-hmm. You want to mix. Ideally, you'd want it to reflect what the church population looks like.
Yeah.
The global population, yeah.
Yeah.
So how many do you have currently? How many reports are you at currently?
Can I share my screen?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Let's get into some of the data here.
Okay.
I know it's funny. I've seen, like on some more faithful comments that have said, "Oh, that's not very much." You have to understand statistics, and you have to understand that there is a sample size, like you just described, where eventually it really does represent the mass. There is a sweet spot there where it does. So yes, this can be very accurate and very telling as far as the numbers.
So this is the website, returnandreportlds.org. It can be used on a desktop. It can also be shrunk to the size of your phone. It's a very nice experience on the mobile phone. I've gotten some very nice compliments from people using it. They say, this is amazing that a volunteer was able to make this. This is better than like most apps from like my dentist office and any place else. I'm like, oh, how lovely. It took me 3 days to build this.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Very
so
simple.
A person who wanted to participate would simply log on to returnandreport.org, as you see that up at the top, and then here's what you would see, and we'll have R&R take us through it.
Mm-hmm. You have a drop-down menu to select your country/US state. If it's not listed for some reason, I don't know, countries and states kind of change sometimes. You can click here and you can send me a message about that, and then I'll add your country and state. But select it from here. I'm going to go down to Switzerland because we have a guy in Switzerland. I don't know if it's a guy. We have a person in Switzerland who has been submitting every single Sunday for like 6 months.
Oh, wow. Well, I will say it probably gives the PMO person something to do because you're sitting
Right.
there going, oh my
Since you're
gosh. And
mentally
then you're
out.
like, wait, yeah, wait, I can be productive. I can do something.
I have to go to my brother's homecoming
Yes.
or whatever.
Yeah.
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 And this is a very good point because right now we're headed into the holiday season and we know that you're going to be visiting family. We know that there's going to be, times when you exactly visiting family and you might be asked to go to church. So you might find yourself in church this season more than you would other times. So go ahead, log on to returnandreport.org and let's get those reports in.
Mhm. We then have a list of all the stakes and districts inside this country. So I click on this, and there are, looks like 5 stakes in Switzerland. I'm going to go to the Zurich one. By the way, if your stake is not listed, there's another link here, not listed, and you let me know that your stake is missing.
Wow. So this is a
Stakes,
living, breathing, growing thing as people add data and
is.
say, hey, you missed mine. This is
It is.
amazing. Wow.
I was able to find a list of the stakes. There's like 4,000 stakes. I was able to find a list of them, especially because you can also verify them on the maps on LDS. What is it? churchofjesuschrist.org now. So you can actually verify them and see them. The more difficult thing is the wards. There are, I believe, 31,000 wards now, and there's no official list. I would have to go onto the LDS maps and check every single one, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, wow.
So when I select the stake, it then shows the wards and branches, but there's only one ward that has been put in, and it's by this person. So anybody who wants to, they can say not listed, and they can add the ward. I did make it so that the ward can be added by a person immediately. It doesn't need to be checked by an admin. Of course, I do check. There's a history log of these. And there has been some malicious behavior on the part of some people. I guess some people have felt that that this could be a negative kind of a thing, which I don't see it as negative. But some people put very creative ward names, let's say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet. And I've heard that some people add just incredible amounts of numbers.
10,000 people showed up.
So you're monitoring all of this.
We are,
and you
yes.
can tell, okay.
Yes, I also have co-admins that have volunteered to help me with this. I do have one individual. He follows religiously. I guess that's a good pun here. He follows the creations of new stakes very closely. So he comes and he updates the stakes very quickly.
Wow.
And I have another person who monitors all the submissions. And then they go and they remove the malicious submissions. Okay, so I'm going to click on this Schwamendingen ward. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. It's Swiss. And now I have a very long page because this person has submitted several reports. You can see the date it was submitted. This is always a Sunday, by the way. We always take the most recent Sunday is by default when they submit. There's a total number. And there's a confidence level. I counted myself, or it's from secretary, or it's I believe it says rough estimate. So we're kind of gauging this. So if we do have statisticians going through this data, they can kind of get a good level of data from here. You can also put in the number of children if you count them. You can count the young men, the young women, the young adults. You can count the investigators. And I left this online also because ever since COVID, there are a lot of wards that are still offering an online version that people can connect to, especially in Europe.
Yep.
Because they're older and they don't feel safe or whatever. Then we also have special circumstances. And there's a whole bunch of these, like, was it a missionary farewell or a homecoming, a baby blessing? Was there a general authority? Was there anything that was special? And I'll show all those. But yeah, this individual has been putting in these numbers for a very long time. Oh, this day was a holiday.
Looks like there are fewer people on that day. Yeah.
Yeah. The number went down, it looked like.
105. Yeah.
On a holiday, yeah. People left.
People
so
left.
Yeah. Memorial Day weekend, you're going to have fewer people there and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a good number of people.
Wherever they went. Like Bear Lake, I know
Bear
here
Lake,
in Utah.
yeah. You
During
go
the
way
summer,
up.
the ward is 1,000 people. It takes them the entire length of sacrament meeting just to pass the sacrament because so many visitors, but then during the off season, there's nobody there. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So for a ward like this, once you have data that goes over maybe a year or two, let's say, maybe you could be able to see some trends.
Yeah.
I am not a statistician myself, but the data is open that anybody who wants to can analyze this data and get us some good information out of it, the trends. There's a plus sign here. When I click on the plus, it now has a form, and now anyone can submit. Okay. And because of the malicious activity, we do monitor if I see wild numbers or just weird stuff, like if there are more children than the total number of people, that's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
It's obvious, but they do it. Yeah, I also made it so that a person can only submit one report per week.
Okay.
I do have people who've complained. They've told me like, well, I went to 2 wards this week, or I have my brother and my uncle told me the numbers for their ward, so I want to do 2, But I guess to find a balance, but between there's a balance between like strictness, like to stop the malicious behavior, and then there's also the allowing people to freely submit because I want to make this easy. They're volunteers. Let's make it easy for them. So that's the balance I struck, I guess.
Yeah, this makes me want to go back to church, Landon, and fill out one of these. I'm trying to think when's the next time I might find myself there because I can just see this count. Oh, look, there's a baby under the seat I missed. I mean, it's kind of fun.
Well, I'm interested, but I'm not that interested that I'd go back to church.
Oh my gosh. Oh, come on.
I'd like to help you, R&R, but not that bad.
Every Sunday, there are people that joke about this. They say, wow, we could actually increase the numbers that the church is seeing if all of us just went to count.
My gosh. That's really funny. That is hilarious.
Yeah. So then people just submit and then it's added. They see it immediately there. For the monitoring, that is at any point you can click on the clock down at the bottom and it takes you to, these are the most recently submitted submissions. So you see like here's Idaho, Rigby, Idaho, South Stake. I haven't previewed this, so I'm going to click on it and see the report that they've filled in. No reports yet. That is strange. Let's try Pennsylvania. No reports yet. Okay, it looks like I might have to go to my slide. Or no. It would look just like we saw the reports from the Swiss ward. It would just look like that. Perhaps there's a bug. I need to go check. But yeah, this is where you would come and you can see all of the different reports. You can even count these, like 1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like there were 4, or I think it's 4 since the last Sunday.
So how many are you typically getting each Sunday now? How many reports?
Oh, I know. I'm getting approximately 10 each week.
Okay.
So over the half of a year, that's we've gotten almost 500.
Wow.
So
you always post these. Yeah, and I see the numbers going up every single time. So just adding to the data pool.
I caught my problem. It's this drop-down menu.
There you go.
It should be reports. Okay. So these are the branches that were submitted. So we would look and see, are there some funny names here that should not be here? But they all look pretty normal.
Yeah, I'm sure now that you're showing people how to do this more, you may, probably twofold. You'll probably have more legitimate reports and you may have more funny little reports.
We'll take care of it.
That's right. At least you get a laugh out of it.
It's a two-edged sword.
It is a two-edged sword. It makes me think of the book club that Landon and I run, the Good Book Club. And of course, when people request to join, they have to put down, personal information. So we have bots that are trying to join all the time, and they're gathering what they consider to be Mormon words. So we get the funniest occupation, like masseuse, apostle, porn manager, because it's just gathering these words. And we're like, oh my God. Some of them are so funny. Sometimes I make posts about them because it's just so hilarious what the bots have put together that they consider Mormon words. So maybe you'll have to publish some of these.
Kind of
right?
funny that porn is considered a Mormon word, but they use it so much.
Because they use it so much. Yeah. And try to fight against it. Yeah, they do all the time. Apostle porn masseuse choir director, things like that. It's just
here's a ward in Australia that might ring a bell for you. The Sydney, Australia Mortdale stake.
Oh, the ones with the emails.
Okay. So we had a non-member who came and created the ward. So we even have non-Mormons using this.
Oh,
so
this is great.
he heard about that on Reddit. That's how do you call it? A fiasco? That news event.
Fake email pretend from the stake. Yes.
And he decided he lived in the ward boundaries in Mortdale Ward, and he went to the ward. And while he was there observing how things went, he came on and he submitted a report of how many people were there. So he did two things at once.
That's so funny. I can see how it's addictive because it is. It's really fun to count and it's really fun to fill things out. So
yeah. Okay, so here are the reports, and this is a ward, and it tells you the number for the day. So I can click on this Orem, Utah, Heathridge First Ward, click on it, and then you see the report there exactly. So they just filled in the bare minimum, 160 rough estimate. They didn't take the time to give any further details, which they don't have to. It's optional.
And can anybody going on the site see any report? Can they look up anything anywhere? Yeah, that's the fun part, that you can peruse around. You can look up your home ward. You can look up the ward you used to go to. You can see what's there.
Mm-hmm. And we only have 500 reports. So if that was one from per ward, out of 31,000 wards, we're probably missing your ward.
Probably.
So if you come looking for your home ward or your hometown ward, it likely isn't there, but please submit it.
That's right. Go back home. Everyone's like, no, I'm too triggered. I know we don't want to trigger anyone by this, but if you do happen to find yourself in church, this is an interesting, productive way to give back.
Now, does it handle branches differently than wards? I mean, how do you, because obviously you can't roll a branch that has 20 people in with a ward that has 200.
Well, you'd be surprised. There are some wards that have very low numbers, especially outside the US. In Europe, and I've seen some in Thailand. There's like a ward that only has 30 people attending.
So how do you account for differences in a ward versus a branch in the average attendance? So
at this stage we can't. At this stage we only deal in the aggregate. All we know, we don't know the size of the ward and the branch. They can all be different, right? And you might even say like I showed you that Swiss ward that had 150 people attending. And you might say, that's incredible, because I would expect that a European ward only has like 100. That one has 150. Well, you don't know the dynamics in Switzerland. Maybe the wards are much bigger. Maybe they have 1,000 people in the ward boundaries. So 150 people is actually not that much,
Or it could be an expatriate ward where everyone's really from the U.S. That's attending. It's not really, which granted, it is attendance in the ward, but it would seem expat wards are always going to be higher attendance than the local wards, it seems.
So I added this button here. It's an icon with a group of people. I've got this icon that's already filled in. It shows like some bar chart with an arrow going up, and that's kind of to say you click here and you can see the reports, and that's what you see by default. I did add this button. I haven't implemented yet. Like if you click on it, it doesn't do anything. But my idea is you could click on this and you could submit the total number of people in your ward or branch. And then
just so you know, R&R, there is kind of a lag in your what you're going to. So when you point to something, we're not necessarily. So if you can describe it in words a little more, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, but it eventually gets there. Yeah,
it eventually gets there. Yeah.
But that makes sense. Okay.
So I have thought about this issue. It would be nice if we knew the exact number of people in each unit. And then you could have a true percentage, right? At this point, it's really a percentage in the aggregate. It's the number. So we know that there's about 17 million people on the rolls of the church in aggregate. We also know the number of wards and branches. It's 31,000. So if you take 17 million divided by 31,000, it's 548. So that is the average ward and branch size is 548 people.
Okay.
And then we have the number of people who have attended on a given Sunday. So we can just take that average. You can average that out. It's around 121 people. So you divide the 121 into 548. And we can tell not on a per unit level the activity rate, but we can tell in the aggregate.
And that comes out at what percentage? Is that that's 20% or right around there?
20 less? Yeah.
It's about 21.
21. Okay.
So we are exactly at 120. We're exactly at 21%.
21%
for the global activity rate.
So 17 million.
Yeah, that kind of tracks, doesn't it, with what we're hearing? The 4
so,
to
so
6.
you're really about 3.5 million active in the butts in the seats each week is what you're looking at. So probably about 4 million, maybe, because not everyone's there every week. So you could probably roughly estimate about 4 million active. So,
and you would expect that there'd be a different activity rate outside the U.S.
Yeah,
probably lower than in the U.S. You might expect the activity rate in Utah to be a little higher than the rest of the U.S.
Sure. Yep.
There's also a nuance here that we know that the church keeps inactive people on the rolls until they reach age 110.
Yeah.
I love
so there's
that.
a huge chunk of this that's dead people. And I don't have a way to account for that. And you know, the local wards might not even. Like my local ward here in Europe might have a bunch of dead people. Nobody's heard of them.
But you are basically accounting for it because they're on the roll and you're taking the percentage based on that. So
yeah, and they're not 21%,
10%, 10%.
The church is counting them, so we do too.
Yeah, the church is counting them. You do too. That's exactly right.
That's all we can do. Yeah. So I would say then you can sometimes start finding trends like this Schwamendingen ward in Switzerland if you have enough data consistently. The rest of the data, it really is in the aggregate. You can see that like, oh, there was a holiday in America, so there's less people went to church this week.
Yeah. No, it makes sense though, and like you say, that it's one of two things that happens. Either the percentage of active people attending might be 25% if you took out the dead people, but only 21% of those being reported are attending. So, one way or another, the numbers are the numbers.
It also might be weighted a little more towards Utah or a little more U.S. centric because that's the people that are on Reddit who see this data published every Sunday. The person that's in Guatemala or in Thailand, they might not even speak English, might not even be aware of this. So yeah, we do what we can. The data is available to everybody. If there are any statisticians that want to get involved and help us answer these questions, and maybe they give the weights differently, like I'm fine with it.
So the lesson learned here is if you're listening from outside of Utah or outside of the U.S., please help out, put these numbers in to help make it accurate across the entire spectrum, because you're right. Utah definitely has a much higher percentage of people on ex-Mormon Reddit and that's aware of these different things because it comes up in daily conversation, whereas those outside don't hear about this. So.
Yep. Did you say that you had some slides to show us some of your numbers too, or have we pretty much covered it? Let's look at the slides.
I do, and they're actually built into this also.
Oh, look at you. You're so good. You know what I love about this?
Current data.
This is what I love about this. I love that everybody does what they can do using their skill set. I mean, you know what I mean? One person might say, I'm going to have a podcast and talk about this. This might help people. Another person says, you know what? I want to crunch data. These numbers might help people. You know what I mean? Just everybody kind of uses their own skill set and does what they can to help in whatever way they can. I just love that. I just think it's great.
I actually learned how to build these types of websites that are database driven. I learned it in a class at BYU.
Perfect.
So
Ooh, there
thank
you
you.
go. There you
And
go.
so
Thank
I've
you.
gone on in my professional life. I do not do web development. I do it
That's
kind
so
of as a
funny.
hobby.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have the skill. I can just do this. Nobody's going to
Yep.
stop me.
No, and I love it because having watched you from almost the very beginning when I saw it, I remember I messaged you and said, I'm going to talk about this on the newscast because I think this is really important, you know. And then I noticed other people jumping in, like on Reddit and saying, hey, I could help you with this, or do you want to talk to me? Or let's, you know, so people want to help. People want to add their expertise to make it the best kind of a platform ever. And I just love that. I just
It's
think
a
that's
great community.
wonderful. Yep, it is a great
I,
community.
I actually had one person. I used to not have this domain, this returnandreport.org.
I
Uh,
remember it was something else. That's right.
it was something else. And then I also didn't want to buy the domain
Right.
myself because whenever you buy a domain, then your name is connected with it.
Ah,
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah.
I wanted to keep my
Yes.
anonymity, just like
Yes.
most of the people submitting also want to keep their
Yes.
anonymity. You notice there's no names attached to this;
Yeah.
it's anonymous.
Yep.
So I had a benefactor reach out to me.
Oh, that's
He
awesome.
he said, "I'm now retired. I'm very wealthy. Do you want to turn this into like a nonprofit and we'll make this huge?" And I was like, thank you, but
Thank
I
you.
have no idea what that even means. How would we turn
Yeah.
this into like a business where we're making
Yeah.
money? I'm like, it's all volunteers. And I built this in 3 days and I'm kind of
Yeah.
done. I have my own life to go do.
Yeah.
But he generously, he bought the domain
Oh,
for me.
you bought the domain. See, that's what I mean. People reach out all the time. It's just, you guys are
Yeah.
all awesome out there. I have to say, everybody
I,
sees a
I,
need and you fill it. It's just amazing.
I've had like cybersecurity experts reach out to me, and they've offered like to do any testing to make sure that it stays anonymous, it can't be
Wow.
hacked.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's nice. Thank you, everybody.
Incredible. That is just so, it's heartwarming to hear that, right? When you start a project that is really going to do some good and everybody wants to get involved. So I love it. Landon, do
Uh,
we have to help him share slides or it's built in right here?
No,
Let's see.
no, I
turning-
think you can do that.
can I show?
Okay.
I've got one last part of the
Yeah,
interface
for
that I'm
sure.
really proud
Sure.
of, and then I'll show the reports.
Yeah.
Okay. So anybody can click on this gear down here, and it comes to settings. Okay, and you can choose your language. This interface is in 7 languages.
Oh my goodness.
Everything. So if you have a person who's French speaking, now everything is in French. You come back to here, absolutely everything is in French. You want to go look at a report. Everything is in French.
Which we're now hearing is the largest spoken language in the church.
In the church, that's right.
Oh, because of Africa.
Because of Africa.
Which surprises me. I would think English would and Spanish next, but that's what we're hearing anyway.
Yeah. And you can change the color. I like this.
Yeah.
You can change the logo. If you're ex-Mormon and you're like, I really want a taper instead, you can do it. And then I added some effects. Like I took this from like the LDS church website, the rays of light. Just make it so nice. Just make it appealing. Make it yours.
This is so fun, you guys. Everybody needs to jump on and try. Come on.
Okay, enough of me showing off.
No, that's so cute. Look how cute that is.
Oh,
Yeah, this is great.
Pierre. Yeah, there you
This
go.
is great.
Yeah. I had some people, they told me like, I love sitting in church and I've got this little taper website. So my own little rebellion.
That's right. Nobody knows.
But yeah, and at the same time, if you are pro LDS, what I guess the ex-Mormons would call TBM, maybe pejoratively to some, you don't have to have a taper on here if you don't want to. You can,
That's right.
You can have this this logo that shows like growth. It's got the church spires that show like a little chart of growth. Okay, so I'm going to go back. So we choose our country, and we have this message up here. It tells you, oh, it's in French now. Maybe I should change that to English.
It's in French.
Okay, if you don't see a country, you can just add it. If you don't see your word, whatever. It also says here, you can find all weekly reports at returnandreport.org/weekly reports. I'm going to go here, and this actually generates the reports that I post on Reddit. I got tired of creating these reports myself. I said, let's just automatically generate them. So it creates, and it's kind of big for my screen. Zoom out for you.
Okay. There we go. Yeah,
So
that's what we're used to seeing. You guys have probably seen this on different post-Mormon social media, and this kind of crunches the numbers every week. Now you know where they came from.
And you can easily come look at it yourself. And this is live. So for this week, November 17th, today is the 22nd. So we still have tomorrow that people could still submit. But then on Sunday, it goes forward, and then everything counts to the next week. There's a drop-down menu in the top left, and you can see every single week that any reports have ever been submitted. It goes back to April 21st, and you can see the very first one. 8 reports were submitted. 6 states and Mexico. And it gives you the average attendance with a global ward size average of 548. Average attendance rate is 21.7%. And this is a rolling, wait, no, that's below. So that was the percentage on that one Sunday as a snapshot. And then it gives you the rolling number. So 8 reports have been submitted since inception. The rolling average attendance overall is 118 people for a rate of 21.7%. It's been right about average. It's been around 20 or 21%.
Yeah, and that tracks with the overall numbers that other sources have tried to figure out. Because again, they know the numbers, but nobody is making this information transparent for us.
Yeah. And this is the current report. 460 reports have been submitted since inception. The rolling average attendance overall is 115.2 people average per ward for a rate of 21%. So it's been tracking. And the statisticians tell me that we are now at a substantial number. And this average number will not change very much. It might change by like 0.1%. From Sunday to Sunday. It's not going to move very much, because when you have like 5 reports submitted out of 500, it's not going to move very much. So we're at a good place. We've got the data to back up, to show. I'm going to go back. We have some more reports that we can show. Okay, you can find all data at returnandreport.org/data. So this is for the numbers people. This is all of our databases that are exposed. So you can see the reports. I'm going to click on the reports, and you can see this is a data object. It shows every submission has a unique ID, the unit type. You can see if it's a ward or a branch. You can see there's a unique ID identifying the unit. You can see the total number of people. Let's see. Yeah, I have to like scroll over. You can see when it was submitted, the confidence level, all the different special things that were given young adults, investigators, online. And then these are all the special events, like a new baby, ward conference, mission farewell. It's 0 for no and like a 1 if it was checked.
Are you getting many out of Africa? Because with that growth, I'm interested in how many of those people are staying or are actually going.
Yeah.
I don't remember receiving a single report from Africa. We've got Australia, we've got some South America, some East Asia, quite a bit of Europe, North America a lot. Canada is on there every time. The UK is there most weeks. But I've never seen anything from Africa. I'm sorry.
Okay. You kind of have to have the internet to make this work, right?
If you want to be able to then identify like which ward was that, because there was just a number identifying the ward, you would go to the wards list. And then each one of these is numbered like 1, 2, 3. And you can see the stake that it's in, which is also a number. And then you see the name of the ward and when it was submitted, when the ward was added. And then if you want to know the name of the stake, you would go to the stake list. Oops. Go to the stakes list. And then you look up its ID, and then you can see which countries that stake is in. We do have a handful of stakes that they cover multiple countries. It happens, especially in the Caribbean islands and like Guam. So yeah, we had to count for that. You can have multiple countries in a stake. Okay. I did prepare another place. I haven't integrated into the homepage yet, but it is at returnandreport.org/dashboard. And we have one dashboard I've created. It's US versus international. I click on that. And here we go. So you can see that for the US, there have been 397 reports submitted. The average attendance is 118.9. I guess we can call it 119. Non-US, 71. So you can kind of see we're weighted toward the US a lot.
Yeah.
Even though half of the church, well, the church claims that half of members are in the US now and half are not. That's not what our submissions show. That's not our submitters. Our submitters are mostly in the US. But you can see the US attendance is slightly higher than the non-US, although the non-US is at 95. So it's not a lot smaller.
Yeah.
And then it's interesting to see Utah versus non-Utah.
That makes sense that they would be fairly close, though, because to run a ward, you really got to have a certain number of people to make a ward work. And the church is going to make those wards bigger or smaller to make sure that they're in around that number that you need to operate. So
that's a good point. Yeah, so they're doing a good job of keeping that balance. Utah has 97 reports. Non-Utah is 371 reports. And Utah's attendance is average 135. Non-Utah is about 109. So just a little bit lower. So kind of what you would expect was what we're seeing. Utah has higher attendance, and the US has higher attendance also. Below that, you can then see each state, and you can see the number of reports that have been given, and then the average attendance rate.
Boy, those Alaskans,
they only submitted once.
Yeah.
One time.
It was in wintertime. They had nothing else to do. It was dark outside.
I'm going to fill out R&R. That's what I'm going to do.
returnandreport.org. Yeah. But you see, like Arizona, we had 46 compared to 1 in Alaska. So yeah, there are a lot more members in Arizona. Quite a few in California, 28.
The more reports you have, the more accurate the average would become. Yep. So
we would hope also, yeah. And maybe like California is a large state too, right? So you'd want a variety of the different wards and branches. Let's see. Anything else?
Just looking through the data is so fascinating. I mean, reporting would be fun and interesting, but just to scroll through all the reports and the data is so fascinating.
Well, I'm really surprised by Indiana. That's where I went on my mission, and I don't remember any of the wards being very large. So 146, that's really surprising to me. Yeah, those. I mean, I was there 25 years ago or whatever.
Yeah. But it could be that they've combined wards.
Yeah, that could be, but yeah, or it could be one of the more popular wards that's reporting multiple times.
Yeah,
could be. Yeah, so that's why we need more data.
Yeah.
Louisiana looks kind of like an outlier here. 2 reports, averages 34.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah, of course that could be a branch and been reported twice, right? So
it could be, yeah. Yeah, and I also see a variety within these, right? This is just giving you the aggregate average for the whole state.
Yeah.
So like sometimes I'll be looking at them, the submissions from Utah, especially like a student ward at BYU, there will only be like maybe 60 people that have been reported. And I'm thinking that's awfully small for a ward in Utah.
Yeah.
But it might just be it's a student ward, maybe it was during the summer. Who knows?
Yeah, that's true. There are fluctuations.
Yeah.
Seasonally, depending.
Yeah. So or like we said, it could be Bear Lake in the winter time and when everybody leaves, and then it'll be 1,000 the next, in July. So hard to say.
Here we come down to the foreign ones. That might be interesting. Argentina, 58. Australia, 89. Canada, 77. Germany, 60. Guam, 115. Like, wow. That one submission.
Yeah. Well, again, Guam is highly U.S. military, so it's really, and it is a U.S. territory, so.
Yeah. And here's our Swiss friend with 133, submitted 20 times.
Wow,
My
those
goodness.
Swiss are really pulling up the average there.
That's right.
20 submissions, yeah.
You wouldn't think they'd affect the average. They're supposed to be neutral. So
Yeah.
That's funny. Thailand is at 44.8. So that's quite small.
That is, and they got that huge temple just
Oh my gosh,
recently.
yeah.
So that's telling when you got 44 people in a ward attending and you got an enormously large Bangkok temple just built.
Well, that tracks. Remember our friend there who told us there's
Yeah.
probably only really about 2,400 members there, even though they're claiming, I think it was 33,000. Is that right? I can't remember, but yeah, very,
way
very
off, yeah.
small. The numbers were way off when they built that temple. Yep.
So yeah, these are interesting. It'd be interesting. This is useful that you could actually take these and compare it to, some of the temples that are being built and look at, what is the average attendance in these areas, and wonder why are they building one there with that when they've got lower attendance. So
yeah, the numbers matter. They really do.
So if anyone in the audience wants to do that, please make the report.
No, but again, it's really relevant because the church is telling all of these residents in these towns that we're kind of following, we're at overflow, we're at capacity, we have so many members here. And of course, the residents are like, well, gosh, if they have that many members, I guess they need that temple. And we're just trying to say that's not the case. It's more like if you build it, they will come. They're hoping if they build it, that it'll drive membership, it'll drive publicity, positive PR, but it's not the other way around.
yeah, and of course, we don't know how many wards there are, but Germany, geez, that's a pretty low number. And I don't know how many temples they have. What, 2? Do they have 2?
I think they either have 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So with 60 people attending a ward, that seems pretty like you wouldn't need that. So,
no, and then you think of the pressure on the wards and the stakes to supply workers. Again,
those temples,
it's a burden on the wards. It really is.
Well, you think of a temple, you're probably, even if you're just doing minimal sessions, you're probably talking about at least 20 people to staff it each day. And when you only have 60 showing up to sacrament meetings and you need 20 a day at the temple, wow, that's a
oh no.
And this is Europe we're talking about. Like I live in Europe,
Yep.
and so I've seen this. The population of church members is getting very old. You go to a local ward here in Europe, and half of the people are like 70s and 80s.
Wow.
They come to church on Sunday. It's more of a social hour for them to see their friends once a week.
Yeah.
They leave the nursing home and they go see their friends. And they just talk about old people's. They talk about how the church used to be in the 60s and 70s when it was in its heyday.
Yeah.
Post World War II, when there was a lot of servicemen and U.S. influence over there, and people were joining, and
church activities were amazing.
Yeah, golden green balls and all. Yep, all that. All the good old
days. And now
it's
not.
And
now they lost everything.
At all. No.
Yeah.
And then they barely had kids, and the kids that they did have all left the church decades ago.
Wow, that is so interesting. It reminds me of, I had a relative that was a mission president. Yeah, he was a mission president in Russia. I'm too many cold meds here, but they said, the majority of the people at church were just the older women, the older grandmas were there, and they were holding it all together. It wasn't young people. It was older grandmas that were holding everything together. So
that's kind of hard when they don't have the priesthood. So.
Yeah, no, exactly. That was it. The men were not coming. It was just the grandmas that were holding down the fort.
Well,
that's the thing. The numbers can tell you a lot. They really can. Yeah. And I just wonder, why do you think the church, is it just because the numbers are in decline and they just won't admit that? Because they used to so proudly get up and give all those stats. Remember at conference, they were always announcing, and then suddenly they were just putting them in, I think, the Liahona or in some kind of report. And then the numbers disappeared altogether. Doesn't anyone notice that? I wonder.
And somebody out there has 31,000 line spreadsheet that has the weekly or has the attendance for every ward.
Otherwise,
out there.
why count? Yeah.
But they hold that like the Kentucky Fried Chicken recipe. It's in a vault that only only two apostles can get it. One has to open one and one has to open the other to even get it. It seems like that's the level of secrecy they've gone to.
And we know there are people who need this number.
Yep.
If the Widows Might Report needs this number, I haven't reached out to them directly yet to ask them if they want this, but if they're listening, like they can come see the data. Anybody who needs the data has access to it. You don't even have to ask me for it.
Right.
Come use it however you need.
Have you been able to compare these at all with, we did an episode with Simon Sutherland where, they were using cell phone data to calculate the how many butts are in the seats. Have you been able to in any way look at those and cross-reference
I have not.
to check to
I have
see? And
not.
I don't know that he's got it specifically per ward unit, but they've certainly got a percentage that they'd figured out. So.
And I might not even be the person to actually analyze that. I'm not a statistician, right?
Yeah.
I'm just a guy who built a stupid little website.
Gathering the data. So.
It's made it easy for people to give the data.
Yep.
Now anybody can use it. I know that there's like floodlit.org is interested in this data because they track like sexual abuse, or I guess if we want to call it SA.
Yeah.
And those numbers can tell you something, but then don't you want to know like how big is the LDS population in that area, right?
Yeah. So
if you only have if you have like 3 incidents in a state, but then there's only like 300 active members, maybe that tells you like a small number can actually be big.
Yeah, it's a big percentage.
Yeah, that's very relevant. Wow.
So you need to know the numbers of the people. Yeah. Yep. I've also heard people like Jana Reese are interested in this, people who are studying the demographics of the church and the trends. So yeah, anybody who wants to, please use this data. And also anybody in the audience, please come and submit so we can make the data even better. We don't discriminate, like it's just data. It's not good or bad. I'm not going to say like, hey, if you're in a ward and you've got hundreds and hundreds of people attending like 100%, please don't. So I'm not going to say that. I'm going to like submit it. We need to know.
Yeah.
And together we can do this.
And it's like you said, it's just data. One person can look at it and say, "God, look how small the attendance rate is," and then someone else can look at the same number and say, "Isn't that wonderful? How many we have attending each week?" So it's very
relative.
Relative, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And everyone is welcome to do their part, even if you just have a little piece to contribute. It's welcome. And thank you for contributing.
No, and we thank you for putting this together. I think it's, I hope that this will help get the word out a little bit more too. And I'm definitely going to send a copy of this episode to, like you said, to certain people that I think would be really interested, because again, it is a piece and everybody's kind of working an angle, trying to get a bigger picture. And this is one piece of the puzzle that's really, really important. And it's something that's, user driven. We can all help with this. If we find ourselves at church.
the name is kind of ironic when I just looked at it again. Return and report is something that we were taught all through our time growing up. We're taught that in the temple, and yet for some reason the church doesn't want to report.
Yeah, that is interesting.
That's why I chose the name, because it has significance.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There was also like the missionaries were always told return with honor.
Yes.
Like you said, in the temple, there's something. It doesn't say in the temple. It doesn't say exactly return and report. It's worded slightly different, but there is some returning, and then later there's some reporting. And there used to be a website called returnandreport.org. It was actually about 10 years ago. It stopped, but it was a third-party vendor. They created a website where home teachers could report their home teaching.
Oh.
Yeah.
And they made it so easy to do. And everybody, you can still see this. There's like a tech forum on the LDS Church's website. And you can see it go back, and there's a forum. And somebody asked, why is the church's system so bad? We can't just we can't just report our home teaching. We have to wait for a phone call or something from the elders quorum president.
Yeah.
Why did it take some outside vendor to make a website that I can use on my phone? Why am I in the most true, richest church that can't even make a website?
Yeah, that's a good point. Tithing was the same way. You couldn't pay online forever.
Oh, I know. Well, they wanted to have that touch point of you having to go stare into your bishop's face, who'd make you feel guilty if you hadn't paid enough. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. They wanted you to go to church to hand in the tithing because that made you go to church. And if you can do it online, you don't have to show up anymore. So that's a good point. But like you say, home teaching, how difficult was that every time?
They make it so hard.
Yeah, they've got an entire computer IT section of the church, a whole department that does this stuff. And I remember when I used to count tithing, we were like using a DOS-based system clear back, in 2012 or something. And you're just going, what is going on here? Why can't the church come up? And I always thought, oh, they just don't have a lot of money. They're the church, And then when I find out they had billions of dollars and they're still using DOS-based accounting systems, it just blew your mind. So
it does.
So why does it take an outside member voluntarily doing this, and they can do it so much better? And then my understanding is that the church was upset with this member for creating this resource. They asked them to take it down.
Oh my goodness.
So now I have the same exact domain address, and it can be confusing to people. I had people on Reddit asking, is this for home teaching?
You're like, no, not quite.
No, not anymore. Snagged it.
That's so funny. No, I'm so glad you got that, because I remember before I was trying to share the domain on the newscast, and it was a little confusing because it wasn't quite as succinct, but now here it is, returnandreport.org. It's perfect. Anybody should be able to find it. So, well, this is wonderful. Landon, do you have any final thoughts on this? And then we'll ask R&R. This is just, I can't endorse this enough, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And I just hope that people contribute to this. The more data, the better, and more, as you could tell, just looking through it, some of the things we're running through our mind, it opens up a lot of things if we have the data. So please contribute.
That's right. Please contribute. Final thoughts, R&R. Yeah, we commend you on this. This is just incredible. You're amazing.
We commend you for your faithfulness.
That's right. That's it.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It's been such a fun. For me, honestly, it's a small project. It took me only 3 days to build this, and really, it just it relies on the contributions of everybody else. And it feels like, this is what the LDS Church instilled in me. Do your part. Make things better.
Yep.
Seek further light and knowledge. Let's get to the truth. We can all do it together.
That's right. And like we said, this is simply data. You can look at it however you want. So you can use it in whatever way you want. So, well, thank you so much for coming on. Please, everybody comment. Have you heard of returnandreport.org? Now that you have heard of it, are you going to rush right out? Maybe not on purpose go to church, but if you find yourself attending a meeting, you know what you can do, because this data is really, really important. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on this, and on everything to do with, crunching the data and why the church isn't as transparent as it could be. Please like and subscribe to Mormonish Podcast. If you'd like to be made aware of when a new episode comes out, you can hit that notification bell. If you would like to help financially support Mormonish Podcast, we have links in the show notes to Donor Box, where you can make a one-time donation or a monthly donation. We are a 501c3. So it is the holidays. If you're looking for a place to park some of that, what used to be tithing declaration money, Mormonish really appreciates all you guys and the support that you show us. We also have links in the show notes to our merch store, where you can grab a mug or a hat or whatever you'd like. And thank you so much.
Can I say how people can reach me?
Yes, let's get
here on the
your
website.
Details. I forgot. Yeah, and we'll put that in the show notes too. We'll make sure we have that there. But yeah, please tell us.
Here on the website, at the bottom between the heart and the clock, there is a speech bubble. You click there and you can give feedback to the admins. We know exactly where you are in the app. So if you're in Utah and you have a problem, or if you're in the Orem stake and you have a problem, you just leave a message and we know exactly where you had that problem. You can also reach me at Gmail. It is returnandreportlds@gmail.com.
Perfect. And we will put all that in the show notes so that anybody can reach out if you think that you would like to help with this project. Like we said, it looks like it's, user led here, which is great. And we'll put all that in the show notes of how to reach everybody. So, all right. Well, thank you all. And final PSA, go get your dang shingle shot if you're a certain age. Oh my gosh, I'm dying. Thanks everybody. We'll see y'all.
We hope you get feeling better, Rebecca.
I hope so too. We'll, I'm just going to go take a really long nap until the next podcast. So thanks everybody. We'll see you next time on Mormonish. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Mormonish. We really appreciate our listeners and would love to hear from you if you have a story you'd like to share. You can email us at mormonishpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on our website, mormonishpodcast.org. And don't forget to look for us on YouTube and like and subscribe. Keep joyful, everybody.